Hey, what's good, everybody? Welcome to another live session with the Hype Magazine. I'm your editor-in-chief, Jerry Dobie, and this evening I have the amazing honor of speaking with Los Angeles mayoral candidate John Samuel Jackson. He don't like me probably to use his middle name, but it's John Jackson. He is an astute businessman. He has been a community activist, especially around the subject of homelessness in the Los Angeles area. He has put out his own money, and now he's running for the LA mayor office so that he can use the taxpayers' money instead of having it sent or stay in somebody's pocket and held above somebody's head. He wants to do things right. So thanks, Mr. Jackson. I appreciate you being with us.
Well, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Okay, all right. I want to know, to just kick it off, from the inside looking out, who is John Jackson?
Well, a few days ago, I woke up one morning and I looked at myself in the mirror and I saw this old man who just needed a shave, And then a few moments later, I saw this little 8-year-old boy going back decades. And I don't even want to mention how many decades, but it was me when I was 8 or 9 years old. And I thought for a moment that this little boy is looking in the mirror right at me. He was just wondering, rubbing his face, wondering when he's going to shave. And I realized at that time that my journey through life was with voices of my father and my grandmother. And the inside of me, my father is drilling to me constantly when I was a kid, those things like do unto others as you'd have them do to you. Treat that next person that you meet in life the way you want to be treated. And he said, if you do that, everything will be happy. You'll be okay. You'll live a good life. Okay. And my grandmother, by the way, my mother's Filipina, and I was born in the Philippines. And when we were there, whenever my grandmother would come over to our house, she would read me stories or tell me stories at bedtime. And she would always tell me, one day you're going to go back to the States. You're going to go to the States. You're going to live there, and you're going to forget about us. And I said, no, Grandma, I'm not going to. You're going to forget about me, but I don't want you to forget your relatives over here, your uncles, your aunts, your cousins, because we're very poor and we're going to need your help. And she said, and I want you to bring me to the States one day. So don't forget about it. I said, Grandma, I'm going to bring you. Don't worry about it. I'm going to bring you to the States one day, and I'll never forget. I'll never forget our cousins over there. I never will. And she told me, she said, well, don't forget us because we're very poor. And I don't want you I always want you to remember where you came from, what we were like, and what it's like over here. Because as long as you keep that in mind, I know you're going to come back and you're going to do something for us. And so deep inside, I think coming from the outside, I hear the words of my grandmother, the words of my father, and that's the type of man I am on the outside, is what they told me, what they've been telling me when I was a kid. And by the way, I did finally bring my grandmother to California, and she lived here for a few years before she passed. And I'm still, to this day, I'm still helping my relatives in the Philippines. So, everything came true, what she wanted. So I'm happy for that.
That's a good thing. It's a good thing. So, what was the defining moment for you that let you know that you were called to public service?
Well, in a word, Roswell, and that's Roswell, New Mexico. We arrived in the States when I was 17 or 18, and immediately when I was 18, I went to Eastern New Mexico University. And my second weekend on campus, I remember I went into town to try to find out what the nightlife was. And unfortunately, there just was no nightlife. So I came back to the dormitory. On my way back, I got lost. And I found myself in an area Roswell, where there's a lot of vacant land and just some shanty houses and stuff like that. And I saw this one, I think it was a family. I saw this lady and this man around a fireplace, or on the outside now, about 20 feet away from this Cadillac. And I saw some kids playing around the Cadillac. It was a 1950s Cadillac with the big old fins and everything like that.
Oh, wow.
And it was quite obvious that that's where they lived. And I never seen such a thing. You know, I came from, there was poverty all around in the Philippines as I grew up. I saw a lot of that, but I wasn't expecting it when I came to the States. And when I saw that, it was just like, you know, I got to do something. I mean, this is unusual. I mean, what is this? And I tried to find them some help. They didn't. I couldn't find any. Well, but I did find out that probably the reason I couldn't find any help was because it was just, there was a lot of, there were no the social services were corrupt. It was the environment in the Philippines, excuse me, at Roswell was, the political environment was just so corrupt. As a matter of fact, the mayor and the city council, they ran that city for 3 elections. Nobody would run against them. They ran unopposed. They were just like that. No one would run against them. And at that moment, I was just 18. I decided that, well, I knew that the 26th Amendment was going to pass, by the way, on January 1st, 1972. And as soon as that happened, 30 days later, I filed my papers and I ran for mayor. I wanted to give that a chance and give that a try, see if I could make some changes in that city, even at 19 years old.
Okay. That was pretty 19 years old, he'd already made up his mind. It's all game popping. Okay, I understand. Now, I'm gonna jump from the script real quick because I want to ask you, as an immigrant of mixed race, you're Black, Filipino.
Yes.
And with your early years in the Philippines, do you remember your first thoughts when you landed in America to start this new phase of life?
Well, when we first came to America, I was just 9 months old. And,
oh, okay.
But we came to the States. We landed in San Francisco on a boat, no less. We came here on a boat, but we went back when I was 6.
Okay.
6 years old. And we finally came back for the first time. I mean, again, when I was 16. And yeah, I had some thoughts about it. My thoughts were, you know, I couldn't wait to get started. A lot of the things that was going on, I was so interested in, I could see only on television. You know, I saw the Watch riots on television. I saw the March on Washington, I Have a Dream on television. I saw, you know, unfortunately, the bad things like the assassination of King and the 2 Kennedys, I saw on television. And I wanted to participate in the civil rights movement. And I wanted to participate in the student movement, which was, now I'm a product of the 60s and the 70s. And when we landed, when we came to the States for the last time, this is what I wanted to do. And I came to the States when I was 16, and this is when everything started for me.
Okay. So great answer to that question. I appreciate you. Addressing homelessness has been a major initiative for you as a private citizen. What was the spark for your dedication to this issue?
Well, I first came to LA when I was in my about mid-20s, and I worked for a Fortune 10 company and right downtown LA. And this is during the 70s, the late 70s. And again, LA was a shock to me. I mean, I saw that little bit of poverty in New Mexico, but I saw downright disgusting poverty here in Los Angeles. It was just, you know, and keep in mind that my vision of the United States was like my grandmother's, that this is land of opportunity. Like every foreigner thinks that this is the land of opportunity. If you can't make it, you can make it here. You can make it in the States. But when I worked downtown LA, I I worked just not too far from Pershing Square. Pershing Square is where a lot of unhoused people lived, and a lot of unemployed people lived in. They hung around and they lived there in on their cars and in boxes, and I just wasn't used to that, and I wasn't expecting it. And when I came to, I was in my 20s, my late 20s, and it was just a surprise to me to see that for the first time. Not here in the United States, and not in the city of angels, and that was a shock to me. And that was a moment for me that I wanted to do. And what made it worse was I ran into a friend, by the way, who had I hadn't seen him in a year, and he also worked with me at that Fortune 10 company. And he had left, or I thought he got promoted, but I found out later, or when I ran into him, that he was now homeless. He was now homeless. What had happened was he had made a lot of money with the company, and he went out there to start his own business, and he had his own condo, he had his own paid cash for his car, everything was going, but then it was a bad business investment. He ended up losing things, and the last thing he lost was his condo. And one minute he was in his condo, the next minute he was out of it on the streets. Thank God for him, it was just temporary, but he was the first person that I tried to help with this matter. So that was something that really got me going on how can I help people with this problem that we're having at that time and still do.
Okay. Well, you're looking to continue your public service. I want to thank you for your military service, your Vietnam era service, Air Force, right?
Yes.
And so it has to be really impactful when you see our veterans experiencing houselessness and being denied vital services that keep them feeling useful and important in our society. What does that spark for you?
It's first of all a lot of shame, not personal shame, but I mean shame for this nation that we would allow that sort of thing to happen. Of course, my feelings are towards Vietnam vets because I grew up during that time, and living at Clark Air Force Base in the Philippines, all the Vietnam casualties would come through Clark on their way back to the States. So I met a lot of those guys, and a lot of them were, this color right here, and they were going back to something that they left to help somebody else fight get their freedom, and they were coming back to the States, and they would have to fight their freedom whether they liked it or not. And we didn't treat them that well. I remember when, as a matter of fact, I remember when we landed in '69 and sitting in that Travis Air Force Base in San Francisco. We met protesters there. There were protesters there protesting, these guys that were on their way to Vietnam at that time. And I just, I just thought that was bad. I mean, it just it's lack of appreciation. These guys, and most of them at that time didn't even want to go to war. But our country our country asked us to go, or asked them to go, and they went. But when I see this, when I go to the VA almost once every 2 months at least, and I see a lot of our veterans there. Now, to tell you the truth, it's just a little bit better. It's a little bit better. It's not as bad as it is. You've heard about some of them VA hospitals in Texas when veterans are dying there right in the waiting room. It's a little overcrowded here because we have a lot of veterans that need that help. And when I see this, it just makes me feel that we're not doing enough, because you can never do enough for a person that has given his life, or has given his limbs, part of his limbs, to help us with our freedom and to hold our freedoms. And I think that we should do more. And maybe I'm a little biased because I come from a military family. My father was a career military person, and I lived on military bases, and I hung around military people all my life. but I feel strongly about that. And my brothers, my sisters, there's 7 of us, and 4 of us joined the military.
Nah.
And you know, it's something that I feel strongly about, that we need to do a little bit more. And just to add one little thing to that, I think that we need to do a little bit more for the dependents, especially when someone doesn't return home, doesn't come home. You got that family there. And I saw it a lot at Clark Air Force Base when someone was killed in Vietnam, and if their family was on base, you know, they had to move off base, or they had to go back home or whatever. But you know, we need to do more for the dependents as well. And that's where my heart is, and that's where my thoughts are.
Okay. So tell us why you believe you'll make a difference from the mayor's office in Los Angeles.
Well, I'm sure I'll make a difference. And the reason is because I'll be coming to the people with experience. And I'm the only candidate that's been out there. You can't talk, you know, these candidates are talking about homelessness, and they're talking about trying to help the homeless and trying to do this. They haven't even been out there. I spent days out there and months out there trying to help the people. And unless you've been out there, unless you know the suffering, unless you can smell what it's like to be homeless, and I'm talking about smell the disgust and the filth out there, unless you've been there and unless you've tried to help someone, then you don't, until then, you don't know what the problems are. These people, we have a lot of services out there. So we're supposed to have a lot of services out there, but the services that we do have, I think that every candidate should at least for one day, they're required, it should be mandatory that they go out there, grab a homeless person and say, I'm going to help you, and try to help that homeless person. And because then when you do that, you'll understand and you'll realize what problems they have and what problems this brings about. And the solution to this is not easy. You don't just, you know, I think some of them are talking about criminalizing the homeless. Some of them are just talking about, well, let's just give them, you know, let's build 30,000 units and put them in there. That's not that's part of the solution. That's step one. Step one is, yes, to put them in a place. But you can't walk away from that after you do that. It takes a little bit more than that. You have to find, unless you plan on supporting that person and feeding that person and housing that person for the rest of your life, you need to find out what caused that homelessness in the first place. And that's where you need to act upon, and that's where you need to put your efforts at. And I'm the only one that has that experience. And I over the last 40 years, I think I must have helped at least 400 people. I've taken 400 people off the street. I've fed them. I've trained them. I gave them a job, or I put them in some housing and stuff like that. And these people are, many of them are successful. Yeah, I have some failures. I have some. I can't win them all, but the majority of these people are doing good. And all I'm trying to do is expand this on a much larger scale. And the only way I can do that is to become mayor, because then I can control that budget. Then I can make those decisions that need to be made. They need to be made on where that money is going, and find out where the money is going. Because we definitely have a problem there. We definitely have a problem on where that money is going.
Yeah, I recall that California received a large federal money dump to assist with the homelessness. And it, as a person who used to do business in LA and Hollywood specifically, you know, I just saw a bunch of trailer homes, or not trailer homes, but mobile homes, yeah, being parked, and people being, at least they were on the sidewalk, but they were in these mobile homes that were broken down, couldn't drive or whatever. On street sweeper day, you know, you'd have to move that. They'd have to come and use the city tow truck to move that one side of the street to the other, you know, so it's kind of crazy. I have some, you know, down in Long Beach, Gardena area, Wilmington area, they have, you know, just massive stretches of these type of communities. So hopefully they didn't use all the money for that. But
let me tell you something, Jerry. You know what? In 2016, the voters of this city got together and decided, okay, look, why don't you guys tax us? And they did, to the tune of $365 million a year. We allowed ourselves to be taxed at $365 million a year for the next 10 years in order to just touch and make an impact in this homeless problem. And back then in 2016, I remember running to the poll. It was about ready to rain outside, but I had to go to the polls to mark my ballot, because I want this measure. It was measure H, by the way, and I wanted this to pass. We had 33,000 homeless people that we knew of, and that's just in LA. Okay, that's just in Los Angeles. 33,000 documented, if you will, homeless people. So that was 6 years ago. Okay. And in the meantime, the government, like you said, the federal government has tossed in $1 billion. The state government has tossed in about almost another $1 billion. So we have $4.1 billion to spend on this problem of 33,000 people. 33,000 people. 6 years later, we should have less than 33,000 people on the street. Guess what? We have 45. 45,000 people are now homeless. That's an increase of what, a third? And at this rate, by the time this administration is over, we're going to see that at about 60, 70,000 at this rate of growth. And you have to ask yourself, where in the heck did that money go? Where did that money go? I have an idea of where it goes, and one of my responses, or where it went rather, and I have a pet peeve there, and these people, and I know from experience that some of these services, because I brought a homeless person to a place that's supposed to offer them services, that's supposed to help them find a place. I brought people there and got no results, got no help for that person. I've showed up at 4 o'clock in the morning, 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning with someone, and the office was supposed to open at 8 o'clock. And these people, and there's a whole line of people waiting to get some kind of service from this, because it's first come, first serve, unfortunately. And they don't open until 10 o'clock, only to tell the people that, hey, we don't have anything, so you guys are going to have to come back next week. This is the type of stuff that these people, that the homeless goes through. Just trying to find services, and it's supposed to be out there. We're wasting our money. They do need services, but I hate that word services because it implies that what we're trying to do is make them feel comfortable in their homelessness. No, we don't want to make them feel comfortable. We need to change our attitude. We need to change our attitude from services to solutions. We need solutions, and they need to be viable, fixable solutions, not just this cover up stuff. Let's just transfer some of them over there, or transfer some of them over there, or give them a, no, come on. We need to do better than what we've been doing. And it's our fault. And I'm talking about the voter and the residents of the city, because we don't expect more. We don't expect more from our politicians. We just tell them to tax us, take our money, take care of the problem, but we don't follow up. And that's the problem. That's the problem.
Okay. All right, we're running short of time, but so I want to ask you one final question. What are the key points of your platform, and how will you execute them if elected?
Well, HHH, housing, hatred, and the homelessness. And, when you think about it, when you try to analyze it, they're all related to the other problems that we're having: crime, addiction, and those type of things. If you work the homeless problem correctly, it's not just throwing someone in a place and giving them shelter. As I said earlier, it's more than that. It's more than that. And that's the first step, though, giving them a place to stay. When you do that, your next step is to find out where that problem is. Why did that person become homeless at first? It could be because of a drug addiction. Maybe it's mental health. Maybe it's unemployment. Or maybe it's something simple like just no housing, or can't afford to pay for the housing. Housing is increasing quite a bit here in Los Angeles, or in California, as a matter of fact. And so when you talk about homelessness, you're also talking about mental health. You're talking about crime, you're talking about jobs, and you're talking about those other things. that contribute to the homeless problem. Housing, I put that in a separate category because that's going to take a lot of energy. We have, again, what's in 2017, we allowed ourselves to be taxed at $1.4 billion through Proposition HHH. And the idea was to make 10,000 housing units before then. And 10,000 housing units in 10 years with $1.4 billion. You know, we're halfway through that now already, and we can only account for about less than 1,000.
Wow.
You know, where in the heck does this money go?
Right.
And you know, it's going into different places, but I'm going to find out where that money is going. That's number one, because I think if you can find out, we have a bucket and we're throwing money into that bucket and somehow it's leaking out of the bottom of it, and we're not resolving those problems. And that's what I think, that's what I'm going to do. I'll find out where that money is going. And the last thing is hate. I come from an interracial family, and especially now with the thing is the Asian hate, and we can contribute that to a previous president that we had. But I wouldn't, you know, my mother looks too much Asian, my sister looks too much Asian, and I don't think it'd be safe for them to walk down the streets of Los Angeles. So not with all the Asian hate that's going on here in LA, that's going on all over the United States. So I'm going to come up with some solutions for that as well. But right now, those are the three topics, and those are major, and everything else in Los Angeles is going to have to fall behind it. Because once we tackle those three topics, those three issues, those three items on our platform, we're going to resolve a lot of other problems that are with us.
Okay. You know, it's a shame. Here we are in AAPI month, Asian American Pacific Islander History Month, and we're still talking to that. So it's very important that we have here, you know, an Asian man, Black and Asian, Black Asian. How do they call that nowadays? I don't know. I remember they had a nasty name for it back in Vietnam. Black Asian, but anyway, who's running for mayor, the city of Los Angeles. It's an amazing opportunity. You've been in there 30, 40 years and in the trenches, pulled yourself up by the bootstraps as an immigrant. And here you are giving other people an opportunity to feed their families and saying, hey, as a businessman, I know we follow the money to get to the bottom of what some of these problems are, and how do we have increased houselessness when you have billions of dollars at your disposal to address the problem. I want to thank you for your time. I very much appreciate you. Got 2 minutes. Any closing thoughts?
Yeah, I want to thank you for using that word houselessness. I've been using the word homeless so many times and so much over the last few years, and that I forget. When one guy had to correct me, I was out there doing something for the people that are unhoused and trying to help them. And he says, I'm not homeless. What are you talking about? I'm not homeless. Los Angeles is my home. This country is my home. I'm not homeless. I just happen to be temporarily unhoused, and that's where I need help. And you know, when I thought about it for a minute, it's an attitude problem. It's an attitude problem. Unfortunately, our politicians really don't care about the homeless, about the houseless and the homeless, because they don't vote, they don't pay taxes. And the only time they're concerned about it is when they move into our neighborhoods, and then we start complaining about it to them. And that's why they're interested in it. But we need to keep in mind that this is their home. They have a home, and they're living in their home right now. They just happen to be unhoused. And I think that if we keep that in the back of our minds, and I need to stop using that word homeless myself, but I thank you for using houseless and correcting me on that. But it's a change of attitude, and the attitude starts with us and with our vote. And with our vote, we can pass that attitude on to the politician that we elect. And I hope that people will think about that. And I want their vote to continue this work that I've been doing.
And
Thank you.
election day is June 5th,
June 7th.
June 7th in Los Angeles.
7th, yeah.
So get out and vote. If you're an LA resident, get out and vote. Vote for Mr. Jackson. He's definitely on to something. And we don't need more billionaires, you know, abusing our tax money and federal money that is earmarked for things that we need to get together for our houseless people and mental health sufferers and things like that. And Mr. Jackson could just be the key to that. All right. So the Hype Magazine live sessions, Mr. John Jackson, he's running for LA mayor. Go out and vote June 7th. Hopefully, when you see this, you'll understand why I'm saying vote Jackson.
All right.
Till then, peace.
Thank you.